Imagine for a second that you're standing in the middle of the Mesoamerican jungle, maybe around the year 800 CE,
Yep.
and you're surrounded by these magnificent, towering stone cities, places like Tikal or Copan.
It's an incredible image
Hmm.
because this wasn't just a civilization that could build things. This was a civilization that, in many ways, seemed to have unlocked the secrets of the cosmos.
That's it. That's the perfect way to put it. And it presents this massive contradiction, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, we're talking about a society that was just obsessive about intellectual pursuits. They calculated time, they tracked planets.
With an accuracy that is just, well, it's hard to wrap your head around even today.
It is. Their calendar systems, the Solkin and the Hob, this intricate dance of numbers, it shows such a profound understanding of math and astronomy. They knew exactly where Venus would be. They knew when eclipses would happen.
And that's the hook. That achievement is the entire reason for our deep dive today. Because how does a society that advanced, that smart, just collapse?
And our sources are very clear on this. This is not your typical collapse story.
Right. No single huge external enemy comes in and conquers them.
No, not in the way we think of, say, the Roman Empire falling to invaders. And there's no evidence of some uh, sudden devastating plague that just wiped everyone out all at once.
So the mission for us today is to really get to the bottom of that puzzle. For you, we want to figure out how an intellectually powerful civilization just seems to abandon its greatest achievements.
It forces you to stop looking for outside culprits and, well, to look inside at the dynamics of the society itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our deep dive today is focused not on a sudden death, but on a slow, really complex decline. One that I think reveals a lot about how fragile even the most advanced systems can be.
And we should probably be clear about the term collapse. It's a bit misleading.
How so?
The Maya people, their culture, they didn't just vanish off the face of the earth. They're still here. The collapse refers specifically to this classic period in the southern lowlands.
Ah, so it's about the failure of these specific city-states.
Exactly. The massive construction just stops. The cities are slowly abandoned. And it wasn't even simultaneous. It happened over, a century and a half, region by region.
That context
Yeah.
that's really crucial. So when we look at these abandoned cities, the first and most obvious clue, the thing everyone points to, is the environment, right?
Absolutely. When scholars started digging into the paleoclimate data, lake sediments, tree rings, the evidence was just undeniable.
A drought.
A really, really bad one. A prolonged, severe drought cycle that hits its peak right around the time the cities start failing. And for a civilization that depended almost entirely on rainfall for their agriculture,
Yeah.
that's a huge clue.
Okay, but if we just stop there, we fall into that simple trap. Drought happened, they died. It feels too easy.
It is too easy. And the sources really push back against that simple answer. Because, look, the Maya had survived droughts before, maybe not this intense, but they had systems in place.
So the drought wasn't the cause, but something else.
What's fascinating here is that we have to move beyond that single cause idea. The sources suggest the drought was more like the final hammer blow.
But the foundation was already cracking.
Precisely. Complex societies, they don't just fail because of one bad event. They fail when a stressor, like a drought, exposes all the weaknesses that were already there, festering under the surface.
So if the drought was just the trigger, what were those internal systems that were already failing? This is where it gets really interesting because the sources point to these four interconnected pressures.
And they all amplify each other. It's a feedback loop. We have to start with the most basic thing, just trying to live in that environment. Let's begin with the first factor, population pressure.
This is a huge one because these weren't small towns. Tikal, Karakul. Some estimates put their populations in the tens of thousands, maybe even over 100,000 when you include the surrounding areas.
And to support that many people and to build those incredible stone cities, you need immense resources. And you need them in an environment that is actually surprisingly fragile.
We see pictures of the jungle and think it's lush, that anything can grow there.
But it's a bit of an illusion. The soil is actually quite thin and nutrient poor. The Maya relied heavily on a technique called milpa agriculture.
Slash and burn.
Right,
Ah.
which works fine if you have a small population and you can let the land lie fallow for, 20 years to recover.
But with a huge fixed urban population, you can't do that.
You can't. You need to keep clearing more land, you shorten the fallow periods, and that leads directly to the deforestation, to soil erosion, and eventually to lower crop yields. It becomes a constant struggle just to feed everyone.
And on top of the food problem, there's water.
A massive water problem.
Yeah.
They weren't built on major rivers. They had to collect and store every drop of rainwater in these huge man-made reservoirs.
Which took a ton of labor to build and maintain, I'm
A
sure.
ton of labor. And the sources also point out they needed enormous amounts of wood, not just for building, but to burn limestone, to make the plaster that coated their temples and, crucially, sealed those reservoirs to hold water.
So the need for wood for plaster, plus the slash and burn for farming. It's a slow-motion ecological disaster just waiting to happen.
All driven by that constant pressure of a growing population. And when you stress a system like that, you get friction, you get conflict. Which brings us to our second factor.
Internal conflict.
Exactly. This wasn't one unified Maya empire against an outside enemy. It was a collection of competing city-states. And when resources like good farmland and water become scarce,
They turn on each other.
they turn on each other. The archaeological records, the glyphs they carved, they show a real spike in warfare in the late Classic period. Not just wars of conquest, but destructive raids.
So they're targeting each other's resources.
Yes, destroying reservoirs, burning fields. It's a classic symptom of a system in decay, where competition over a shrinking pie makes everyone weaker. It cripples their ability to work together.
And now we bring the drought back in.
Now the drought comes back in. But we see it differently now. It's not the cause, it's the multiplier. It's our third factor.
The thing that takes all these existing problems and just turns the dial up to 11.
That's a perfect way to describe it. The drought didn't just happen to them. Their own actions, like deforestation, may have even made it worse on a local level, changing rainfall patterns.
So when the big, prolonged drought finally arrived,
The already strained milpo system completely failed. The reservoir system, built for seasonal shortages, couldn't handle years and years of failure, and the starvation that followed just poured fuel on the fire of those internal wars.
which takes us to the fourth and maybe the most critical failure, the one that ties it all together.
The political system. The fact that their whole governmental structure just lost its balance.
I find this one the most fascinating because our political system was built around this divine king, the Kuhul Ija.
Yes, this king figure was supposed to be the direct intermediary with the gods. He wasn't just a ruler. His job, through rituals and bloodletting, was to ensure the rains came and the crops grew.
But wait a minute. You could argue managing a city in a jungle is an incredible feat of management in itself. How is that a failure? Was it just bad management, or did they just hit a wall ecologically?
That's a great question.
Huh.
And it wasn't a failure of, say, engineering. Their water systems were brilliant. It was a failure of legitimacy.
Oh.
When the rains stop coming, not just for a season, but for decades, the entire basis of the king's authority just crumbles. The central promise of the whole system, that the ruler can mediate with the cosmos, is proven false right in front of everyone's eyes.
People lose faith.
They lose faith completely.
Yeah.
And because the Maya world was so politically fragmented, with all these competing kings,
There was no one to coordinate a large-scale response.
exactly, no central authority to organize resource sharing between regions or manage a mass migration. Their political structure was too rigid, too competitive. It was built for maintaining the power of a local king, not for solving a persistent civilization-wide crisis.
So when one city failed, there was no safety net. It just
Yeah.
fractured.
It fractured into chaos. So you see, when you connect all the dots, it's not a mystery. It's almost inevitable.
Political infighting and a rigid leadership made them unable to cope with the demands of their population, which had already pushed the environment to its breaking point, and then the drought just pushed the whole thing over the edge.
It's a slow, agonizing death driven by ecological short-sightedness and institutional weakness.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, it seems like the ultimate lesson is that even having the most advanced knowledge, like their mastery of the cosmos, it just can't save you.
It can't save you from fundamental mismanagement of your resources and your politics.
Which brings us to the great paradox of the Maya.
It's a staggering one, isn't it?
It is. On one hand, you have this civilization that developed positional math. They understood the concept of zero.
Long before many cultures in the old world did.
They predicted eclipses. They had this long count calendar that could map time across thousands of years, far beyond what anyone would need for just, farming.
They had the ultimate abstract knowledge. They looked up at the heavens and they understood the vast, predictable machinery of the universe. They were masters of celestial time.
And yet,
they
failed completely to understand the limits of their own backyard.
That's the shocking insight from the sources. All of that brilliant abstract knowledge of the cosmos couldn't save them because they ignored the non-negotiable limits of their local environment.
It's more than just an archaeological finding, isn't it? It feels philosophical.
It's profoundly philosophical.
Yeah.
The most advanced science in the world becomes useless if your political and social systems refuse to respect the basic ecological boundaries right under your feet.
They could tell you where a planet would be in 1,000 years, but they couldn't figure out how to manage their soil for the next 50.
Yeah.
It's a story of intellectual hubris meeting ecological reality.
Yes. And if we can connect this to the bigger picture, the Maya are this chilling case study, a demonstration that understanding the distant stars is no substitute for understanding sustainable local living.
Their calendars could tell them exactly when the planting season should start.
But their stressed-out political and ecological systems meant that when the rains didn't show up on schedule, they couldn't do anything about it. They were paralyzed.
So we come back to the end of it all. And the final takeaway from the sources seems to be that civilizations don't die in one big sudden blow.
No, they don't.
They die when they believe they're immortal, when they think their technology or their political system makes them exempt from the basic rules of nature.
That's the real story of the collapse. It was a long, slow process. It was driven entirely by those internal stresses: population, politics, conflict, and then the climate just delivered the final decisive push.
It wasn't a mystery. It was the predictable failure of institutions that valued monuments and power over resilience and adaptation.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final, I think, very provocative thought to chew on.
Go on.
If the Maya, who are masters of time, could so profoundly misjudge their own limits, what boundaries are our advanced societies ignoring right now? We have so much knowledge today. Unparalleled data about climate change, about resource depletion, about systemic political fragility. So you have to ask yourself, what knowledge do we possess right now in our scientific reports, in our databases, that we're failing to apply, simply because our own political structures might lack the coordination or the legitimacy to make the necessary long-term changes?
The Maya had the data. They just failed to heed the warning.
And we have to ask ourselves, honestly, are we doing